Let's Podcast alongside Lauren Brownlow. I'm Joe Ovias inside Eford Studios, downtown Raleigh, thanks to Empire Properties and thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. Giglio is not here today because I believe he's doing some sort of community service for yet another traffic violation.
I don't think I've ever heard of anyone having to do community service for a traffic violation unless it was like reckless driving.
I think he tried to get out of it thanks to our friends over at Whitaker and Hamer.
Sure.
They work this kind of stuff out. Plus, I don't know, maybe it's an accumulation of things. Because remember, he got that speeding ticket on the way out to Sedgefield.
Okay.
For the Wyndham, where we hung out with the mayor of Sedgefield, your dad.
Yes. Was it in the neighborhood?
Well, this one, no, it was in Graham.
Okay.
We're driving through Graham.
It's on the highway.
And then this traffic violation apparently happened on Fayetteville Street, where he was trying to pass a car and a cop did not take kindly to that. So he popped him. And now he's not here today. But anyway, happy Halloween.
Thank you.
I see you're festive today. You've got your.
I love Halloween.
Got your bloody knife earrings.
Those are my favorites. I've been wearing them.
Is the shirt intentionally ripped like you're Freddy Krueger, or?
I don't know. I'm not Freddy Krueger. I'm just getting in the spirit.
Okay. I'm going as a Disney adult.
So yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
That's fair. That is fair. Although I did get struck with inspiration in the last 24 hours thanks to ACC football coaches.
Oh.
I feel like what I should do for Halloween is this year just put out granola bars, maybe a couple pencils.
Yeah.
Nothing really exciting for Halloween, just basic stuff, healthy food, if you will. And then when the kids complain, I can be, whoa, where's the appreciation, kids?
Exactly.
I gave out full candy bars last year. 2 years ago, I gave you full Reese's. Last year, in the pandemic year, I had a table filled with a variety of things that you could choose. Where's it? Show a little appreciation for what I've built over Halloween in the last 10 years, kids. So, I'm having an off Halloween. I didn't get to Costco in time. They switched it over to Christmas. I missed out on the big deals for candy bars. But hey, you know what? Everybody's had a bad
You're
Halloween.
lucky I'm giving you any candy.
Exactly. Is that what I should do for Halloween?
Maybe.
All right.
Apples.
Give
out some apples. No, people won't trust that.
It's been a really interesting couple of days with ACC football coaches and appreciation. Or wanting to feel appreciated, or
we all can identify with that feeling, of course.
It's all to varying degrees of appreciation that these coaches want.
Sure.
We've had Dave Doeren start the week off with his clapping back of Steve Smith.
I was alarmed for his health. Thankfully, that was not necessary.
We had Mack Brown on Monday during his normal press conference. Seem a little bit surly at the questions about the defense, and then Dabo capped the night by having an epic 5-minute rant at the expense of Tyler from Spartanburg.
Okay, so, Tyler.
Let's start with Mack. Actually, let's start with Mack because Mack is all out of answers when it comes to yet another defensive breakdown that cost him a game, and he got a little bit of the Dabo virus, or as we like to call it, the Jeff Bizdelic of the week, where you sit there and you talk about what you'd actually be.
Our radio people told us that you take away those runs, and we outscored them by 19. So
Dabo's been on this kick the last couple of weeks, saying, "Hey, man, we're just 1 or 2 plays away from being 7-0, and going into the NC State game." You can make the argument that they're 8-0 without the Peyton Wilson pick six.
I think he's still said something. I don't know if he still said something like that, but
Mack Brown said the same thing during his press conference, and that's what got most of the run. We're 2 drives away from being a top 5 team. Okay. I'm a couple scratch off tickets away from being a millionaire.
Right.
But it is what it is. You are what your record says you are, and I think the biggest issue isn't that you didn't lose these games to top level competition.
That's the thing.
You lost these games.
That's where you lose people when you say, now look. If Georgia Tech were the first game they'd lost, with the way a lot of it played out, not all of it, because the defense was just ghastly in the fourth quarter. It's the worst I think I've ever seen that defense play ever. Okay. And that's saying something. Mm-hmm. If without that, there were some definite things that you were just like, that only happens to them in Atlanta. You know what I mean? Like even the Tez Walker fumble.
Yeah.
Like it looked like he was about to score and he just didn't see the guy. Great hit. Like credit to
he had to send him to the hospital.
Like that kind of, it looked like a first down conversion on their way to the game winning touchdown. And all of a sudden it ends with like that guy, a beloved team member that they fought to get eligible all year, all of a sudden laying there motionless. I mean, that is like the ultimate, but look, they did enough to put themselves in that situation. And without Virginia, like with Virginia in the mix too, and the way they played in that game, you can't take it in a vacuum. And that's the thing. Like, well, sorry, maybe you should have like taken one of your 4 double-digit leads and done a touch more with it.
I think that's the part that is the most maddening and why they seem to be, or at least Mack Brown yesterday was a bit of a loss, and he kept deferring to Gene Chizik, the defensive coordinator, for all questions related to what happened. And they had leads. Okay.
4 of double digits.
In the Virginia game, it wasn't as if something weird and fluky happened. Virginia just went out there.
And they got a break in that game, a break that they didn't
fumble out of the end zone.
Right. They didn't get that kind of break at Georgia Tech, whatever, but they did get that one in that game.
And then with Georgia Tech in the fourth quarter, it wasn't some weird fluky special teams breakdown. It wasn't some sort of penalty.
No, it's just literally their defense was befuddled.
So here's Mack Brown on Monday getting asked questions related to what's up. Like, how does the second quarter and the fourth quarter in Atlanta happen like that? And there was a pattern that developed.
Looking at the fourth quarter again, you mentioned tempo. I mean, was it just a case of your defensive line just getting worn down? I feel like their offensive line did a good job as the game went on, especially the game.
Yeah, I think so. Gene will address all that, Chip, here in a minute. But, I mean, you can't get them off the field, and they blocked us, and we didn't respond very well. So that was very, very disappointing.
All right, that was Chip Alexander from News and Observer asking that question. I believe Adam Smith, Inside Carolina, followed up with that, and here is the. Actually, no. Let me go to this other question because it's just as short before I get to the Adam Smith exchange. No, I'm sorry. This is an Andrew Jones exchange.
Okay,
excuse me. I'm getting my sound clips confused. So this is Andrew Jones. Was it Tar Heel Illustrated? And Andrew's been covering Carolina for a very, very long time. And Mack did not like the way it was described as catastrophic, a word that Gene Chizik uses all the time.
Is there a moment maybe where you sense that some of the stuff that was working defensively earlier, just for lack of a better term, kind of fell over a cliff?
I wouldn't say it fell over.
I'm trying to find a good way to say it.
Yeah, the good way to say it is we were playing great defense before the Virginia game, and we have played very poor defense the last 2 weeks. So if falling off the cliff's a better term for you to be dramatic, that's...
Well, I don't know if it's my term so much. I was just trying to find a way to...
Yeah, here's what...
It's been pretty dramatic.
Yeah, here's what you don't hear. We played great defense the first quarter. Wow, we didn't fall off the cliff the first quarter. We played maybe the best defense we've played in a long time the third quarter. Didn't fall off the cliff the third quarter.
I cannot.
So you all want it to be drastic. The fourth quarter, we were absolutely awful, as bad as we've been since we've been here.
You know who played defense in the third quarter for the most part? Carolina's offense did. That's who they had the ball for 13. And this annoyed me. And I love Wes Durham and Tim Hasselbeck, but on the broadcast there was talk, and I get why
they were saying they were gassed.
They were saying they were gassed. They were not on the field in the third quarter at all. Haynes King threw a pick, an awful pick that he's known to throw passes like that. By the way, that they. Thankfully they made the play, they caught it. And then they had another drive where they did get a stop on the drive. It wasn't like a 3-and-out or anything, though. They have played better defense even in that quarter. They were not on the field. It's driving me nuts that that's still a thing that people are saying because they just weren't on the football field. They were not.
Mack did reference the fact that they had time of possession in the third quarter, but then he put it most of the...
It was a minute and change that they had the football.
He continues to actually put the onus on the offense for not producing, which is odd to me considering they had how many points in that? They had double-digit leads at that point, but anyway, he continues.
In the third,
so to me, you look at what's good about first and third quarter, and you try to figure out, like Chip said, what happened. Second, they threw it. Fourth, they ran it, and why? And part of that's offensively. We didn't play as well on offense in the fourth quarter, so we were 0-3 on third downs. So if we stay on the field offensively, and that's why this stuff gets pretty complicated. It's not as simple as everybody wants it to be. this much stunk. No, it's a team game, and we start talking about complementary football. When you can't move the ball, you leave your defense out there too long, they're going to get tired.
Okay, cool. I mean, here's my issue with this, okay? Did they not convert? He's right. They didn't convert a third down in the fourth quarter. You know what? They did almost on the Tez Walker fumble. I don't know that I'm throwing that in there as like a fail on the offense's part. It's just something, it's bad stuff that happens.
That's football.
Right. They had a field goal attempt miss that perhaps they should have not even bothered to kick the field goal when you see how your defense just looked. Like, I'm sorry. I don't understand how your team can score 42 points and you can let up what you did in the fourth quarter defensively. And then you can sincerely say that, like, oh, the offense didn't do enough. Everything is on them, and they knew that. And that also makes it harder for the offense. Every bit of pressure is on them when they see the defense going that way, because they know if they do not score, they will find themselves like either down or the game close. It's just,
which is why kicking or attempting the field goal that they missed with about 6 or 7 minutes. I mean,
it was 4th and 7.
Yeah, at this point, given how the fourth quarter was going, it was a read the room situation.
Right.
Maybe you have to understand that when Georgia Tech gets the ball back, they're likely going to go down the field and score on you. 6-point lead was not going to be enough.
What happened too was I feel like Georgia Tech really stepped on the accelerator when it came to the tempo.
And they got confused.
They got confused and they couldn't get lined up correctly.
It wasn't being gassed. It was confusion.
Yes.
Cedric Gray actually talked about it after the game, and Mack Brown was asked about that again during yesterday's press conference, and he once again deferred.
Mack, as you've gone back and looked at it, it looked like, at least their Saturday night, to some of our untrained eyes, it looked like Georgia Tech threw it on you pretty well in the first half, and you adjusted, maybe you got the nickel in the second half, and then stayed in the nickel when they were running it all over you. I mean, that seemed like one of the failures.
That's what Gene will be here to answer.
Did you all see that when you went back and looked at it?
That's what Gene will be here to answer. That's why we have our coordinators come for 30 minutes.
So that was Adam Smith who asked that question from inside Carolina. I texted Adam last night, and I said, hey, man, look, you're there all the time. I don't have an opportunity to get to these press conferences.
Yeah.
I usually just hear the audio or I watch the YouTube just to get a general sense. Was Mack unusually short with these types of things? Does he always just say, we're going to go to Gene Chizik on that? And Adam said, he does. But
it was giving me a bit of Phil Longo energy, honestly, because remember, that's always what he used to say about any question about the offense ever. Not that there were as many, but anytime somebody was like, why'd you call this player? Like, why did this happen? Or why wasn't so?
Go ask Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this led up to Mack Brown getting into the theme of the show, and that is coaches just kind of fed up with being questioned and not having fans appreciate where things are right now.
Mack, sort of along the lines of what Jeremiah is asking you, I was thinking about it like, I mean, this is an older group of guys, by and large, that had very ambitious goals for this season. And with the back-to-back losses, some of those goals, move further from reality. I mean, it's part of your challenge this week, in addition to fixing stuff, just like the motivation, like making sure the motivation doesn't dip or wane. You know what I'm saying? Like, is that part of your plate?
Sure, but if you're trying to be the best you can be, and you're trying to improve every week, and you're trying to play up to a standard, none of that should matter. I mean, these are human beings, and obviously there's some disappointment for all of us, but they don't cancel us games. They don't cancel the season. There's guys on our team that won 2 games 1 year, and there's fans that didn't show up for 2 games that are bitching about 6 wins. So. I mean, that's just part of the deal. You just do the best you can do, trying to explain how 120 guys feel, and if they're excited, if they're disappointed. Some that didn't play are mad because they didn't play. Some that played good are really excited. Some that played bad are blaming coaches. I mean, across the country, that's what happens. It's a huge span of emotions when you start looking at a football team, and you just have to kind of balance it all out and do the best you can do and try to get ready to not only beat Campbell but get better this week, because you got one of the hardest schedules left emotionally that we've ever had.
So again, that's Mack Brown at his Monday press conference, and I have a couple thoughts on this. Mack is older and wiser. I'll go back to something that Mack Brown said when he took over Carolina 2.0 version where he said, look, man, being away from football for 5 years doing TV gave you a little bit of appreciation and a little bit more of a larger worldview. Don't miss the forest from the trees kind of thing. And I think that's what you get in that answer. Like, look, man, look across the country.
Right.
Totally on board with what Mac says. However, what I do wonder and worry about at North Carolina is I would be pissed off.
Yeah.
If I had things set up for me the way that Carolina had this season.
Yes. And you look at what's left to, it was all right there.
I wouldn't shrug it off.
No.
I wouldn't be like, hey, man, look across the country. I mean, I understand where he's coming from.
Yes, I do too.
And he is right in that there's upsets all the time.
Right. There's upsets all the time. And then when you look at the totality, like what exactly do you want in terms of a year in, year out football record? I get that too.
But there's a couple of things at play here. There's history at North Carolina that goes beyond Mack Brown.
Yeah, I wrote about this for the Messenger this week. Actually, it's not out just yet, but it will be.
And then there's also getting pissed off about the opportunity you have with Drake May, who Mack Brown even said, there's only 2 more games for Drake May at home.
I think the frustration too is not just about Drake, right? It's also about the fact that they have Sam Howell before him. And tell me that game didn't feel like a vintage Sam Howell game, because it did to me. I haven't seen Carolina play that kind of a game specifically where the defense is just that bad that they have to score every time they touch the ball. They haven't played that poorly, I don't think, since some games they won. And I think that's why it masks it, right? Like they won some games last year where they allowed some awful point totals, but they won anyway. And I think maybe it makes it seem like less of an issue because they were able to win in spite of that, when it's really like, no, this is still a big problem that you're putting all of this on your offense. It's not sustainable.
Every time we talk about college football, it's brought to you by Wings Over. Check them out. Wings Over Raleigh, Wings Over Chapel Hill, Wings Over Greenville. With Raleigh and in Chapel Hill, I mean, at this point, you're eating your feelings, and wings are a wonderful way to eat your feelings. All the great flavors. So go check them out. They're open for lunch in Raleigh. Best part about Wings Over for me is you can order online, schedule your pickup, go get it, and take it back home. That's what I've been doing the last couple of weeks during the football season. So again, go check out Wings Over. All right, over to Dabo. Monday night.
I needed that.
It's the coaches.
I needed it so much.
It's the coaches call-in show, and I look right off the bat. I thought to myself, hold up, they're still taking calls on a coach's radio show?
Not super surprising to me there.
Okay.
I think there's always been a little bit of a different relationship.
Maybe, but I just know that across the country, coaches shows have gotten away from calls, or they do voicemails and or emails,
or like write it, like, or something you can screen. Yes. So because callers will lie about who they are.
Of course they will.
I've heard of this countless times. They'll be like, we want to ask about this. And then they'll get on there and be like, why are you whatever? Like,
my first job in radio was a call screener. So yes, I understand. One of my first gigs was to actually run the board for when the Steve Logan coaches show would happen at ECU.
Oh boy.
And he would battle with fans all the time. I mean, heck, I remember there was a time, I think.
Did he get mad at you for letting some through?
No, this was, we just ran the board. There were times where when I was a producer call screener at 850 The Buzz, where a guy would say XYZ and they would get on and completely just not talk about the thing they said they wanted to talk about. And Adam and I would look at each other, and I just put up my hands like, dude,
it's not what
I'd screen the guy. Like, what am I supposed to do? So it happens. It happens. And sometimes you can play off of it. I mean, I remember one time.
I'm sure Logan would have played off of it very well.
I think it was the Tom O'Brien show.
Oh boy,
where somebody had gotten through and I remember this. The audio clip probably got disappeared, but it was like, pack your bags, pack your bags, pack your bags. I think it was after the loss to North Carolina. So this call gets through from a guy named Tyler. Tyler goes for 3 minutes. He goes for 3 minutes.
Okay.
So I get to the last part where he gets to the.
I thought it was like 2, but either way, it's a lot.
I timed it. He spends time talking about how long he's been a fan, that he's a man of faith. He spent time
had
in the
a Bible
military.
verse ready for him.
He hit him with a proverbs about pride before the fall, like all the stuff.
Yeah, he called him arrogant, but the worst thing he called him
Tommy Bowden.
That's like a swear word for Dabo.
So it leads to this stretch and Dabo responding.
We've won 12, 10 plus.
Oh man, I paid the wrong one. I'm just off my game when it comes to playing sound bites. Here's the one.
But after that 2018 national title, something changed, and there seems to be a lot of arrogance, came in. There's a lot of friends and family. I mean, 3 of the 10 on-field football coaches are external, experienced hires. Everyone else was an internal hire that had no experience before, or was a former player or friend. So I'm curious, why are we paying you $11.5 million to go 4-4? And it's not just this year. It's been, just a refusal to accept.
All right. What's this guy's name? Tyler. Hey, Tyler. I've listened to enough of you, Tyler. You can have all your opinions that you want. All right? I don't know how old you are. Don't really care. All right.
The age thing was weird.
We won 11 games last year, and you're part of the problem. To be honest with you, because that is part of the problem. It's people like you that do that. All you do is the appreciation. The expectation is greater than the appreciation, and that's the problem. And so, we've won 12.
So he continues on.
Is that actually the problem, though?
The age thing, I think, was in reference to the fact that let's go through Clemson history. If you're an older fan,
he seemed like very sure that this guy was very young, and I certainly didn't get that from hearing his voice, but whatever.
I didn't get Tyler. I didn't get that either. So he continues. Dabo on his radio show continues because he went for about 5 minutes.
Over 5 minutes.
I'm not
I listened to every second of it without thinking that I would.
I'm not going to play the whole clip because A, it's 5 minutes. B, he repeats himself often. So I got to the meat.
That's what makes it good.
I got to the meat of what Dabo was saying.
We've won 12 10-plus win seasons in a row. That's happened 3 times in 150 years. So if you want to know why, Clemson ain't sniffed a national championship for 35 years. We've won 2 in 7 years. And there's only 2 other teams that can say that, Georgia and Alabama. Okay? Is this a bad year? Yeah. And it's my responsibility. Take 100% responsibility for it. But all this bull crap you're thinking, all these narratives you read, listen, man, you can have your opinion all you want. And you can apply for the job. And good luck to you. All right? But to answer your question, all right, we're second in draft picks. We've graduated 98% of our guys. We're second in wins. All right? We if you want to know why, again, I'm telling you, we're not perfect. There's a lot of teams that, Frank Howard never had a bad year. Coach Ford never had a bad year. Coach K never had a bad year in basketball.
It's my favorite.
People have a bad year.
I was like, geez.
Invoking Coach K. He's right, though. Everybody's had a bad year. But here's where I'm at with Dabo.
Not a ton, though.
He brought up last year.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's no back jokes with Dabo. Last year, Clemson was about taking back the corners. Like, you had your 1 year where we fell off. That was your chance to get it. And then they went back and they won 11 times, won the ACC again, beating North Carolina in the ACC championship.
I don't know that we completely bought it, but we were still like, okay, this shows that.
We still saw the issues, though.
Yes.
We still saw
the
issues.
thing. The issues were still there.
You still need to go out and get your talent level has dropped off from where you were when you won those national championships.
I maintain playing UNC's defense and made people think differently about Cade Klubnik than what he really is. But it also is not just a quarterback problem at Clemson. So
it's wide receivers, it's running backs. Yep. Shout out to Will Shipley, but again, it's all those things. As Gilio pointed out yesterday, right now their best dude is their tight end. That's a problem if you're Clemson. But because you won the ACC championship, it emboldens you to think, well, what I'm doing still works. You guys are wrong. I'm right. And I'm not the first person to point this out. I know Bud Elliott's been on this over at CBS Sports, the Cover 3 podcast, and we'll get to Bud's theory in a second. Bud is absolutely right that this season is actually good for Clemson and good for Dabo because it makes you look in the mirror. It does not allow you to comfort yourself in, well, we still won the league. No, you have to take a hard look at what's going on and think, I have to adapt. Otherwise, I'm going to get left behind in where college football is going.
And I think the fan concern that I've seen, not talking about Tyler. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about some legit fan concern is really when they see quotes that Dabo has about we're a few plays from 8. No, and I get why he's saying that, but at the same time, it makes people think that
nobody wants to hear that shit.
People think that they're not actually addressing anything because they think they should be 8-0 anyway. They think it's all just a matter of turnovers and bad luck, which they have done some of that, but at the same time, like that didn't used to
The
matter
college
to them
football
either.
playoff committee is not going to look at Dabo's quote and say, "Hey,
I know. Well,
we should consider
we know that,
Clemson
but I'm saying like
because
it could be a reason for him to say they don't need to do as much introspection.
Somebody needs to get in Dabo's ear and say, "Hey, man, you might have to say this publicly to keep your team in it," because there is that aspect of it. You have to publicly still believe in your team. It's the same thing
for
that,
sure.
It's the
Same
same thing that Mack's doing.
Yep.
You still got to show that you believe in your team.
Yes.
Dave Doeren's gone about it in a different way, which we'll get to in a second, but you still have to show you
but
believe in the team.
it comes from the same place. Yeah.
But internally, you have to be having honest conversations about what you have to be doing next.
Yes.
And this gets us to Bud, who is more convinced that Tyler was an inside job. How do you get that call through otherwise with the calls coming from inside the house? And how does Dabo have all these stats right offhand?
He made me think. I'm not saying Bud's right. It made me think a minute.
So look at this plan. Claiming to be a veteran from overseas also helps sell as to why you don't cut the guy off. I don't know. Maybe it ain't that deep.
Maybe not. Yeah.
I don't think it's that. Why am I playing my own self? Anyway, the point being, I'm having all sorts of technical issues today, but you know what?
You need to be accountable for those.
You know what, Lauren? You know what? How about let's go through the 90 other shows that I've done.
I'm sorry. I should show appreciation.
You should
You're
show
right.
appreciation for episodes 1 through 90 of this podcast and how technically brilliant I've been with them, and not look at episode 91 and think to yourself, man, Ophius is really falling off. He's really fallen off, hasn't he? I don't think it's a plan. I really don't think it's a plan.
Yeah, I actually don't either. I don't know. He probably has the stats ready to go.
Of course he does.
I mean, he's Dabo.
I mean, it's the same thing happened when he went after Steve Spurrier. Like, that was a work. No, I know of an instance that was a plan, like the famous triple play, Tom O'Brien triple play.
Oh.
That was a planted question.
Really?
Yes, that was a planted question.
Are you serious?
I'm being
That actually
absolutely
significantly
serious.
takes away from my enjoyment.
Yeah, the Tom O'Brien triple play.
I'm so disappointed by this. You ruined my day.
He basically was like, "Hey, make sure you ask about X," and then boom, the triple play happened.
I hate this. That just because like Tom was a very quick-witted. I mean, he still is a very quick-witted man.
But it was a planted question.
This is crushing to me. I am crushed.
Speaking of the Wolfpack, Dave Doeren had his Monday press availability, and he added some clarification. This has to hurt. This has to be fascinating for you because you're a Steve Smith apologist, and Steve Smith said something. If Dave Doeren,
you're going to ask me to take sides. You know who I'm siding with.
So here's Dave Doeren following up again on the Steve Smith exchange, and apparently they've exchanged text and video.
In the post game, regarding my comments, I felt it was very important to stand up for our program and for our team, and I do feel that duty. And that responsibility as a head coach. And in the moment, my feelings were very raw and authentic. And I have great respect for Steve Smith. After the game, he texted me and sent me a video congratulating me on the win. And as a man, I thank him for that. It takes a lot of humility to do stuff like that, and I know he was not trying to disrespect our program, even though that's how I felt. And I appreciate him for that, and invited him to come down and spend time anytime he wants, and hopefully he'll do that. Come be on our sideline. He's a great player for the Panthers, great player for Utah, and a great representative of the game. And I think him being on our sideline, feeling the energy of our fan base, would be awesome. So hopefully we'll get that done.
I love that so much. Like that's just two adult men that can both have been known to take a lot of things personally.
Yes.
I think in the piece I wrote up on, I called him fellow slight detector or something like slight seeker. Cause they both are. They both love that. They don't love it necessarily, but they look for it. They look for it and they're like, no, this is not okay. And I'm going to show you why.
Yeah.
They're both kind of like that. I mean, I love that. Like Steve Smith, look at that growth. Think about
there's been growth. See, I think that's the buried lead here because I know Joe and I were talking about
there's been growth for both
yesterday.
of them. I'm proud of them.
I really do think that Steve Smith has grown.
There is a decade ago.
Steve Smith would have shown up ready for blood and guts.
I mean, maybe, or he definitely would have said a lot meaner things
easily
than what I actually thought was a little more innocuous of a comment when I heard it. I was surprised. Like because I'm hearing it in Smitty's voice when Doeren's saying that. And I'm like, oh, he's probably like just a basketball school. Because that's like how, but he didn't.
He didn't.
He actually seemed apologetic about it and sad for State. So I was like, why did he? I mean, who knows? Maybe somebody just told him Smitty said that. Maybe he actually saw it himself.
I don't think he saw it.
I don't think he saw it either because he did seem very like, hey, I know he didn't mean it that way, but I felt like he did. And look, it takes like Doeren has shown growth too.
Mhm.
Because good for him for just saying like, listen, that's the way I took it. I got a ton of respect for him. We talked it out. It's all good.
Yeah, like he even had to, go back on the whole basketball. Like we're not a basketball school, and this is what he had to say.
NC State has a lot of great sports, and football is one of them. And supporting my program and doing that was my intentions, and that's what I was doing, standing up for a football team. And I know in the aftermath, things sometimes land differently with certain people. And, because of that, I did call Coach Keats, and Kevin's a great friend. I love the guy, and definitely I have so much respect and admiration, not just for him, but for his program. And that's what makes NC State different.
I'm not going to get on Dave too much about Westmore. Although, to be fair, that's the one who should have been like, hey, why wouldn't they look forward to basketball? Hello.
I'm the one who's won ACC championships here
exactly.
in modern history.
Yeah, of y'all three.
With this particular thing, it's not that deep.
I know. It's really not.
That's really not that deep.
No.
I'm
just
the people who wanted actually the basketball school thing. I'm like, y'all, come on.
I think it's fair to do that, to be honest. Actually, in the sense of like the Westmore, because I almost said that too. I was almost kind of like, that would be Smitty's best comeback. Is like, well, isn't your women's team like awesome? Are you gonna act like they're not? Like, sorry. I know
that can teeter into.
I know.
Like,
I only wanted him to say it if he meant it
as an insult. Which
to be clear, I know he watches women's basketball, so I thought he might have meant it. But
like that's not that deep. In
it's really not that deep.
But I think the thing that people should take away from Dave Doeren and all of this, you might not like the messaging. You might not like the way he goes about it.
He's a little prickly sometimes.
You might think
a little
it's kind
sensitive,
of small and sensitive. However, it gets back to what we talked about at the beginning with Mack Brown. He's pissed off.
Yes.
And the team feeds off the fact that they're pissed off and they want to take back some of the season.
Yeah.
And it gets back to a conversation we've had all year about what is the floor for NC State. The floor should not be 3 wins. And it looks like they're going to fight their way into having
I'm not surprised.
A respectable season. And that's a credit to Dave Doeren in the grand scheme of things. Housekeeping. All right. So we have the OG tailgate taking place next week. So Tuesday, the 7th, Carolina Hurricanes, Buffalo Sabres. We're going to be hanging out in the parking lot with wings from Wings Over. We'll have some beverages as well. It's just a hang. Now, you have to have tickets to get into the game, but we have 3 pairs of tickets that we're going to give away later today. It's all on our Instagram account, OG Triangle Media on Instagram. A lot of people have entered. We're going to pull 3 listeners out of that group later today. So be on the lookout for that. If you don't win, but you're still going to the game, hang out with us before the game at the OG tailgate, which is going to be helped by Wings Over and our friends over at Sweetwater as well. And if you're going to the game and you want to bring your own goods, you can drop by Breeze Through. Got a location right across the way from PNC Arena. They've got one in Chapel Hill too. So if you're headed to 2 more UNC football games, drop on by that Breeze Through and pick up your tailgating needs. And of course, get gas as well. That's kind of a big deal. So big thanks to Breeze Through for sponsoring Ovies and Gilio. And big thanks to Whitaker and Hamer. Check them out, wh.lawyer. They might find a way to get you out of a traffic violation, just like they did for Gilio. They have all sorts of things, attorneys and counselors at law. Did you see Smitty on the sideline? He was doing NFL film stuff. He had like the camera and everything.
Yeah, I saw him a little bit.
Okay. I love, by the way, C. Smith has always been like this, going all the way back to when he was playing for the Panthers, where he like interned for WFNZ.
Yes.
He would like hang out in the studio. I know he goes on with our friend Kyle Bailey all the time on WFNZ. He's got his podcast. He's doing the film stuff. He's got the TV stuff. So he's a learner, man. He's just, I love watching Smitty do his thing.
Very smart guy.
And that gets back to our conversation about growth with Smitty. Was there growth for Bryce Young this week? Clearly, CJ Stroud the bust.
You mean literally?
No, that's not going to happen unless he's taking something he shouldn't be taking. Or he's wearing those boots that Ron DeSantis has. So my question is, CJ Stroud clearly the bust because Bryce Young got the QB wins this past week.
Yeah, he got the QB win. Yeah, so he's defeated now. Now he's going to have to keep defeating rookie quarterbacks as he goes along to get to the...
So hear me out.
Okay. Listening.
1-6. But they're not out of the race.
Please stop.
Not out of the race. I do think there's a path to the division to win the NFC South for the Carolina Panthers. I'm on board now. One win changes everything. It's a week-to-week league, Lauren. It's week to week. They just needed to break through once.
Now,
why are you looking at me like that?
Okay, because stop it. But the one thing I will say is that it would be very funny because they don't have the pick.
If they
ended up making the playoffs and tanking their draft position that they don't even have,
that would go to Chicago.
Correct. So now I'm kind of on board for this because that would actually cost Chicago like a lot of draft spots.
It is funny you mentioned that because that's kind of where we are with the Carolina Panthers. Look, yesterday I had a listener point out to me that I was kind of cavalier about the Panthers beating the Houston Texans.
That game almost killed me.
And the reason why I was somewhat cavalier is because, yes, they won. It's great that they won, but I don't think it really changes any of our opinions about what the Panthers are and what they need to fix.
Right.
Offensive line was still a problem.
Yes.
Frankie Louvu had an amazing game.
Love Frankie.
And I mean, as of this recording, it's 10-18 right now. They haven't traded Frankie, so that's good. Trade deadline's on the way.
If they trade, never mind. I'm gonna.
Or Brian Burns for that matter.
Well, at least that would. I don't know. It would. I don't want to say it would be understandable, but like that's clearly their best asset. If they would trade him, stop it. Read the room for once in your life.
You need to replenish those assets, and right now those are the two pieces that would get you anything at this point. Now, Brian Burns,
Frankie. Leave Frankie out of this. Frankie is not an asset.
Brian Burns,
he is to me, but no one needs to know that.
The ship sailed. The ship sailed on getting 2 first-round draft picks for Brian Burns.
I know. Agree. Which is like, so at this point, just don't
do it. Right. Sign him with a contract, but we'll see how that all plays out.
I mean, they just have to figure like the left tackle situation is what it is at this point.
But here's what to get back to my cavalier attitude about the Panthers and why I was kind of like, cool, you won, you needed to do it. I'm sure it was great to see Bryce Young smiling again. We haven't really seen a lot of smiling out of Bryce Young. That's just not his character. To see it
I think he's actually played better in other games that they didn't win. So, you know, I mean, not that he played poorly. He didn't. I thought he played pretty well.
Bryce Young has been fine.
I agree.
He has ultimately been fine. The team around him is just not very good right now. He can't catch the passes.
I mean,
Ike Ekwonu's has regressed to a point where it's.
I don't even.
You just wonder what's going on with him, man.
Literally.
Where's Oz the mentalist to come through the Panthers camp, the Panthers locker room and convince him, hey, man, you need to act like it's 2022 again.
Also, like, we need him to get rid of the sun visor. Because I think he's not. Do you not see him looking around?
No, I know what you mean.
As if he didn't see what was just happening? I can't have that anymore.
But the one thing that I have to remind myself, and this typically happens Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning, as I'm getting ready for the rest of the week, is that I take a look around the league. I stop focused on the team that we talk about mostly, and I go, okay, well, what else is going on? And the problem is when you look around, you're going, man, there's really nobody that's good.
Right.
And
that's what makes this like almost worse.
We're dangerously close to a weekend of football if we didn't already hit it this past weekend, where I'm going to name you a quarterback that's starting this week, and you're going to say that's not a real person.
Okay.
Or, oh yeah, he's starting. Where'd he go to college? And I'll tell you where he went to college, and you'd be like, that's not a real place. That's just another house of Harry Potter.
I mean, I guess that'd be an improvement over whatever they've been doing with the terrible backup QB recycling.
Well, it's bad.
Like, doesn't Nathan Peterman still have a job? What are we doing here?
The fact that Tommy DeVito got actual, like, I need to go win a game time for the Giants tells you something.
Did Eric Dungy play in the NFL? Because if he didn't, I'm going to be mad on his behalf. Okay,
no, he
good.
Did.
Okay, good. Because, like,
I'm pretty sure
of Syracuse quarterbacks I've seen recently.
I got to go back and look at Sports Reference, but I'm pretty sure he at least played in backup
game, right?
Duty or
that's what I was hoping for him. Yes.
So to my point, nobody's great. Quarterbacks are getting hurt, and that's
quarterback play isn't great.
It's not great either.
No.
So 6 of the next 10 games, the rest of the way for the Carolina Panthers, are against teams with losing records. The Colts are 3-5. That's their next opponent. The Bears are the dumpster. The Bears just got. I think the Bears have to quit the NFL after what the Chargers' social media did to them.
Oh my God!
I think you should leave memes on them. I'm doing my part. I'm not doing shit.
That was amazing.
So the Bears are 2-6. The Titans are 3-4. The Bucks are 3-4. The Packers are 2-5. The Bucks again 3-4. So that's your remaining slate of losing record teams. 6 out of the next 10. But the Falcons, who are 4-4, and the Saints, who are also 4-4, and tied for the top of the NFC South, are not exactly wowing you right now. the Desmond Ridder experiment seems to have run its course in Atlanta, and Panther legend Taylor Heineke looks like he's gonna
That's another
assume
one that I'm like, he's still in the league.
He's still in the league. You know what? Actually, before the season, before I realized he was on the Falcons, I thought he was still on the Commanders.
Speaking of that, I mean, literally all of the quarterbacks I think on that roster are playing somewhere. PJ Walker's playing.
Yes.
Kyle Allen.
Yes.
Like
Sam Darnold almost started for the 49ers this week because Brock Purdy was in concussion protocol.
Yeah, they even had a graphic up with Brock Purdy as Sam Darnold during the game.
So think about that. That
By
these
accident.
these washout QBs that the Panthers thought were going to fix problems are backups, and they're actually playing, which tells you where we are in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
Now, the chances of the Panthers going from 1-6 to winning the division with a losing record is fanciful thinking.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is on the table for all the reasons I just laid out.
I mean, I'm listening. At first I was like, stop, because you know what? I'm so programmed to, because it's happened to the Panthers before where they have like not the best season and make the playoffs and then cost themselves draft spots.
Yeah.
However, now that it's not their draft pick, I mean, let's get weird.
I mean, that's really where we are right now with the Carolina Panthers. Do whatever you can do to not give the Bears a great draft pick.
I'm here for this.
In what has been an uninteresting season.
Wouldn't it
We
be
need
really fun?
something.
It actually, though, would be kind of funny if the Bears ended up beating them. Because they would just be sabotaging themselves.
That would once again show you that the players do not care about draft picks. The players do not care about tanking. The players just want to win. So yes,
Right.
that would be funny. Do you know the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears right now?
I heard the name and
Yeah.
I'd never heard of him.
Was it Tyler Banjit? I believe is the guy's last name.
That's sure. I believe you.
Chris Collinsworth was getting roasted the other night because he said something along the lines of like, Justin Fields could learn from Tyler Banjit. Excuse me?
You know how I feel about quarterback apologia in the NFL.
Collinsworth is
did you watch the 49ers?
That was terrible.
Like the way they were like, I was like, is someone on this broadcast related to Brock Purdy? Like, and that's not saying he's bad. He's not bad, but they were acting like everything he did was like fine. And they were barely talking about the quarterback he was playing against that was outplaying him like crazy.
What's funny about this, and it kind of gets back to the start. So we'll end this segment going back to the start and the joke about, it was a joke about Bryce Young and CJ Stroud and what the impact of this game meant in terms of how we perceive these two quarterbacks.
Yes.
CJ Stroud and Bryce Young are going to be compared as a part of this quarterback class until
100%.
they're done.
Oh, yeah.
Like every other quarterback class. There's nothing unique about what's going on here.
And that's fine.
But the definitive statements on these QBs don't happen until 10 years from now.
Right. Certainly not 10 games
midway
in
through the season.
And we're not even 10 games in.
However, it does expose the very base way we talk about the NFL, that we
It's so
look at
stupid.
somebody like Brock Purdy, who's just
He's
okay.
fine.
He's exactly it. He is fine.
He's very you could do a lot worse than Brock Purdy. I think he's good. He's on the better side of average.
It is the most base way you can talk about the NFL that's now permeated to casuals, and there's nothing wrong with casual fans. But in order to pull those casual fans in, you talk about these QBs in these ways, and you have to be like, there's also this tendency to be like, I want to be on the ground floor of saying that this guy was the next Tom Brady. Like I was telling you back then, I saw it in him. Nobody saw Tom Brady when it was going to happen. So
I don't
stop
know.
acting like that's going to be the case.
But it's like maybe spend more of the broadcast gushing about the actual dude that is on fire at quarterback in
There's
Joe
that.
Burrow. Like,
There's that.
why are you spending this whole thing being like, they just made excuses for him the entire time.
We're doing this with the Dallas Cowboys. When the Dallas Cowboys win, we go back to the discourse about Dak Prescott and whether or not he's actually the guy to get you over the top, rather than talking about what ultimately makes the coffee drinkable in Dallas, what stirs the drink, if you will. It's the defense.
Right.
Just like with the San Francisco 49ers, it's the defense that's kind of banged up.
It's
right
kind of
now.
like people can't talk about Tom Brady's early career with any nuance whatsoever.
No, he was
and
always
it
the
drives
GOAT.
me insane because I was there for it and I remember, and I will not have you all gaslight me into believing anything else. Thank you.
Every time we talk about the Carolina Panthers is brought to you by Graffiti. Check them out in downtown Cary. Graffiti has a bunch of great TVs. They got incredible bourbon specials. It's a Tuesday, so they got the break-even night going on right now. And on Sundays, for all of football, they got even more bourbon specials. So go check out Graffiti in downtown Cary. You might see us hanging out. I'll be there Thursday for the beer podcast or for the 919 Vice podcast. So go check that out. Also, big thanks to Home Field. check out the promo code OG23 at checkout. Use the promo code OG23 to get 15% off your order. They have amazing shirts, amazing sweatshirts, hoodies with awesome throwback designs. Home Field never misses. So you can get your stuff today. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use that promo code OG23. Eric McElwain, ACC Network, Clemson legend, hanging out with us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. Or should I call you Tyler in Spartanburg?
No, definitely not that. Never that guy.
Are you sure it wasn't planted? Did Dabo hit you up and like, hey man, I got this fire take on fans?
Could you imagine? Could you imagine if it like sounded like me or sounded like somebody else? You're like, oh, that's Eric. Are you kidding us, Tyler? No, man, that was wild. Actually, what's crazy is that they let him ask that question.
That's the thing, that made people
bump that dude out. You got to cut him off. Dabo was probably like holding his finger up. He's like, do not do it. Let him finish because I'm about to just scorch the earth right here.
I feel though, and Lauren and I talked about this earlier, between Dabo, Mack Brown on Monday, and Dave Doeren using Steve Smith really as a jumping off point.
Yeah.
Gilio and I talked about this on Monday.
For sure.
His beef wasn't with Steve Smith, man.
It's with fans, but he can't keep taking it out on the fans.
So he took it out on Steve Smith.
I understand.
All these three coaches have what every coach goes through. It's like, I've built something. We've had good things here. Yet the pressures of football occasionally bleed out into the public, and you see these coaches, real for. I don't mind it, but I also understand why fans at all different places feel this way. So let's talk specifically about Clemson, and let's strip away the silliness of Dabo talking about how we're a couple plays away from 7-0 and all this other stuff. Do you think it's a good thing that Clemson's actually going through this right now? Because it'll force Dabo to actually look in the mirror and make some legit changes.
Will it? Will it?
That's what I said.
That's why I'm asking you. People
I think whatever, it's going to be very fascinating either way. And I think too, man, it's such an interesting thing because I go back and forth on it a bunch. What should be done, and there's different ways to say it, and obviously to attack a man's character, faith, and poke and pry. I mean, that was a weird way to go about it. I think he could have asked the question, his finances. I mean, what he's worth. Like that's, first of all, he's worth way more. Like, let's be real. And Joe, you and I talked about that. I couldn't remember if it was this past ACC championship,
might have been, or
2 years ago. But you and I were talking about, because people were getting mad at him then. And I'm like, listen, before this guy got here, you were nothing. You have a blip. You were a blip on the historical plane of college football. 3, I think, 10-win seasons before. When I was there, that's what we did. That's just what we do, and still to this day. And obviously they won't do it this year, but it was just a regular. So he deserves more money. And think of it's so funny. I call it Dabonomics because it's a real thing. Think of the application rate. Think of the way the university has grown. Right. And our leadership has 1,000% leaned into that. President's board, AD, and grown because of that. And they understand, listen, the house is the school, right? The university is the house, but the front porch that everybody sees is athletics, is football. And they understand that thing is shiny and pretty, and that'll open up a lot of doors. So I think when you attack a man or a woman in that way and come after all those things that he said, what do you expect? That you're going to get the horns, man. You're going to get the fire. And as you brought up there, it's so much pressure. And this has probably been building for 2.5 years. I mean, as soon as he doesn't make a playoff, he's the worst guy ever, and get rid of him. And now it's this buildup to where it just all exploded. So I like the human element of it. Yeah. I think there's something to that. And again, I think the questions that were trying to be asked without, being attacking were valid, but it's just the way it happened. And he got the result that we all saw.
Listen, once he said Tommy Bowden, that's when Dabo held the finger up. Like, no, I'm gonna let him finish. And he was ready. He was ready.
Exactly.
Like that's incredibly unfair, obviously, right. and obviously that would be something that would upset him a lot to have that comparison.
Absolutely. And I honestly, again, y'all know how strong in his faith he is. When he said, "I don't know if you've read this passage of scripture," but like he's totally making fun of him. I mean, it was bizarre. It was just a silly way to do it. And so because of all those things, it's just, you get what you get, man.
All right. But let's get back to my central question.
Yes, please. I'm sorry. That was a long-winded.
No, but that's important. But that's important context to Dabo has the right to feel a particular way about the program that he has built and has been successful.
Absolutely.
But once you get to that level, the expectations then adjust to what you should be. Alabama deals with this with Nick Saban. Georgia obviously deals with this with Kirby Smart going forward. So my curiosity is, as stubborn as Dabo has been about changing with the times, you can't sit here and watch this Clemson team and not think, man, if you had just played the game, if you had modernized to go get yourself a player out of the portal like so many other schools do, and we're not talking wholesale roster changes like a Deion, it's more of like the Mike Elko approach at Duke. He said, look, people act like we weren't active in the portal. We were.
Right.
We identified our needs. We went and got them.
Yeah.
And that's how we make our team better. I don't think it's that hard of an ask for Dabo, is it?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the interesting thing too is just how competitive of a guy he is. I would think that he would want to dominate that facet too, and want to prove that his culture is strong enough that they can bring anybody in and adapt to that quickly. So I don't know the hesitation with it. And I think, like, I asked him this year, quite blank period about it. And, what he told me is just that there was no room. We had too many guys come back that we thought were leaving. Our recruiting class was too big and too many guys came back, and we had to make it work. We had to make it work to get Ruka Rororo to come back. Right. You know what I'm saying? I think they're taking that guy over any other transfer portal. So Joe, Lauren, whether that's an excuse or whether that's the truth, that was the matter of the fact this year. And I think I've said this a couple of times, and I don't know what every other coach does. I've only been with this one, right? He's the only, experience I have playing for was this guy. But his greatest strength right now can also be a greatest weakness, because he's not kicking anybody out just because they're not playing to the level.
Right.
When you look at Georgia, you look at Alabama, you look at the other schools, and guys move on that you're like, oh, that's weird. I'm guaranteeing you they were told, you're never going to play here. Go find somewhere else. Coach Swinney will never do that unless you break a rule, unless you abide and do weird things and, whatever in class. He's not kicking guys off. And so that, again, kind of takes up the room of guys not coming in. Now, if you want to say, hey, here's your recruiting number, it's 18. Why don't you take 3 of those and hold them for the transfer portal? That makes sense. And that's something that I think could be very viable. So it'll be interesting. I think this year, you're right. You add an offensive lineman here or there. You add a defensive end. You even add a quarterterback.
Get yourself a Keon Coleman. Get a Keon Coleman.
That'd be nice. Hey, bro, I'd love that. Hey, maybe a Concepcion. You know what I'm saying? Maybe whatever it takes. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
That because NC State fans are so pressed right now that they see man, we got this. We've been wondering where the wide receiver is, and they're already freaked out about KC. But that's the game. That's the game.
I'm joking. I hope he's not.
But
it is the game.
We're gonna know that when it happens, we know that we're gonna call him the Eric McLean wide receiver.
Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
NIL money. Your Ingles NIL money is the reason why.
Yeah, you see it right here. We're saving up, man. We're saving up.
It's all about that podcast hustle, man.
That's right.
All right. Speaking of Florida State, I like to get away from Clemson. I was hesitant to call them the class of the ACC because before the wheels fell off at North Carolina the last 2 weeks, the way Duke had been playing, I did think to myself, look, Florida State's good, but I do think it's a strong ACC. But based on what I've seen and how they handled Duke's defense and wore them out, and then the way they completely dismantled Wake Forest, a respectable program of
from the jump too. They didn't play with their food this week.
It does look like Florida State's finally kind of in that zone and the class of the ACC. The question is, who's going to play them in Charlotte?
And we have an elimination game this weekend, right? Which is exciting. I think it's Louisville. I think that's been kind of clear, and it just, man, it quite frankly, it pisses me off, the Pittsburgh game, because it's what a waste of an opportunity. It totally is. And it's just like, why? How? What are you doing? Like, it's not hard to play disciplined football, and they just couldn't. And weather, whatever, on the road. Now, Louisville has been a different team on the road. I mean, that's been very evident. The great thing for them is 3 of these last 4 that they play are at home. That's a good thing. Now, they do have to go to Miami. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But I do think it's going to be Louisville. Super complete team when they're hitting. especially when Jawar Jordan is available, which I don't think he was for that Pitt game. So that kind of helps
Yeah, he
answer that
wasn't.
question. They're productive, man. They can do a lot of different things offensively. They really took what Duke gave them, which was not passing the ball. I mean, that passing defense is for real. And they ran it for a career high for Jawar. And I thought the defense was excellent. So, I think we're really going to them continue to grow and expand. Now, Virginia Tech obviously going to be a tough battle this weekend, and the Hokies are figuring it out, which has been bizarre to say the least. But I think them, Georgia Tech, Louisville, you can throw in there.
That's who I was going to mention was Georgia Tech.
It just shows you how important quarterback play is, and when you get a guy, you're in every game. There's no question.
Yeah, I was going to mention Georgia Tech just because it would be very funny to me. Georgia Tech or Virginia Tech, to be
Hey,
honest.
if they're ranked, Georgia Tech under Brad Key's probably going to win.
That's right.
That's
Make
the
them
fun
17,
fact.
though. It can't be anything but 17.
That's a good point.
Oh,
That's a
good point,
And
yes.
if North Carolina's a double-digit favorite against an ACC team,
They're
according to
losing.
Vegas, they're gonna lose it at that point. Eric Mack Lain, ACC Network, Kramlich and Mack Lain, the podcast. Eric, we appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you later.
No doubt, man. Appreciate you guys.
Big thanks to Eric Mack Lain for hanging out with us here on Ovias and Gilia. Always love catching up with him. He's a much more subtle, nuanced take on Clemson rather than us outsiders, Lauren.
Exactly.
Big thanks to Butcher's Market for sponsoring Ovias and Gilio. The weather's getting nice. It's time to be hanging out in your back patio. It's time to fire up that grill. There's only so many football tailgating opportunities left. Don't leave anything to chance. Get the good stuff at the Butcher's Market. You also have to start thinking about Thanksgiving. And if you want really easy sides, you want really easy appetizers, Butcher's Market's got it for you. So go check them out. They got locations across the triangle. And of course, a location out in Wilmington. Also, big thanks to Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority for sponsoring Ovias and Gilio. Mosquito season's wrapping up now that it's getting cold. That doesn't mean that the critters aren't going to be active in the cold. They're seeking that heat. You want to make sure that that's taken care of. That's where Pest Authority comes into play. Check them out online, bugsbite.com. No contracts. Word is bond. Like, if they're going to get the job done, you're going to stick with them like I do, and you're going to be really happy with your service. So again, go check them out at bugsbite.com. Joining us in studio, Steve Wiseman, covers Duke for the News and Observer. Did Mike Elko get a quick lesson this week on what really moves the needle on Duke's campus?
Yeah, I mean, you're coming off 2 losses, and then boom, Monday morning, Cooper Flagg Day in October.
Look, I'm not. So it's just jokes, people. I mean, what Mike Elko's been able to do at Duke has been fantastic, and we'll get into some of the offensive short circuiting that seems to have taken place the last couple of weeks, especially against Louisville. But are you surprised that Cooper Flagg is going to college?
Oh. No, his mom played college basketball for Coach P. Remember Coach P from Duke when she was at Maine?
Yeah.
So and she's
wait, are we that old now where
I'm afraid
where
to say
Joanne P. Macaulay players have kids who
are going to Duke? Yeah, we're big time recruits. That's where we are.
I just got more gray in my beard.
Yeah,
Wow.
I got a few more grays up
Steve,
here.
jeez, man.
So,
okay, so
here we are.
Because like with Ignite has been producing NBA draft prospects,
right?
Which is the entire point,
right?
But I guess this is a testament to what Nina King's trying to do at Duke as athletic director, what John Shire was elevated to do as the head coach, and they've got a general manager. I mean, NIL factors in here, and Duke gets the game. And I guess if you're Cooper Flagg and you have all of this following, well, no offense to Carolina, but where else would you want to go at this point if you want to combine the two things?
And that's the selling point that Shire has, a big part of it.
Yeah.
Also, he can say, hey, Cooper, guys that have played your position for us, Jason Tatum, Brandon Ingram, let's go on. Jabari Parker was a top pick. He flamed out as a player, but he got a lot of money, right? So
not the point.
Yeah.
He got there.
Right. They put guys in position they bring in guys that have all this ability at that position and build on it. They have a proven track record of that. So
was it coincidence that John Shire got a contract extension just before this official announcement from Cooper Flagg?
There are no coincidences in basketball. And it was
kind of
announced.
like how what was the Slam magazine had the whole thing ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was. Remember that news came out also while Cooper was on campus.
That's right, for
his
Countdown to
official
Crisis.
visit.
Yeah.
And also back to the football thing. It came out the day Duke was playing Florida State in that big football game. Like, oh, by the way, we're giving our coach a new contract. That's going to get released.
I mean, listen, you don't even have to say, like, we all know what it is. Like, some schools are a little sensitive sometimes about, like, they don't want the football coach to get their feelings hurt. Not as much there, which I get, by the way. I'm not saying I don't, but yeah. It's.
So, about Duke football. Look, Riley Leonard is not exactly. Let's not make Riley Leonard something that he wasn't before the injury. It's not like he was this guy with a deadly arm that was going to beat you that way. I think Riley Leonard's feature was the fact that he had this big playability. He's tough to bring down.
Yes.
But with the, I don't want to say rushing back of the ankle sprain, but he's clearly not at 100%.
Right.
They had a great game plan for Florida State, and I know it's cliche, but I feel like that Florida State loss where they poured everything out, and eventually with Leonard's re-aggravation of the injury and how they just kind of ran out of gas, I feel like that Seminoles game cost them 2 losses.
And that's what you don't want to do as a coach, right? You obviously work hard not to let that happen. But they, Elko said they came out flat, and we also, and I was there, like they had nothing. And I wrote this. It looked like Duke from 2 or 3 years ago.
Right?
And
that was
really
what was disappointing about it for me.
First time it's happened.
Yeah, in a while.
Under Elko.
Yeah.
They haven't laid an egg like that.
Yeah, that was kind of alarming almost because they fought so hard, and like every other game this year, you can see it. Anytime they get down, it doesn't like they're gonna keep fighting and they're gonna make it tough on you. But that was just they had nothing left.
And part of it, I think, the offensive line's beat up, which happens as years go on. But it's your top 2 guys, Graham Barton, who's going to be an NFL guy next year, and Jacob Monk, who has the most snaps of anybody in that line. Both went down, and so they couldn't get the blocking going. The receivers are having trouble getting open down the field. That's a problem. Elko mentioned after the Florida State game.
Yeah.
So that's an issue. So we'll see. In a short week, Riley coming back with an ankle in a short week. He's not going to be.
Are they just living with it now?
Yeah, they have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because Henry Billen the Fourth, bless him, but he supposedly has an arm.
Sure.
But they're also not letting him throw, which is another kind of curiosity that I have. I mean, clearly this Duke team is built for what Riley Leonard brings to the table.
Yeah.
And I guess you're just going to have to live with this going forward. Not to say that counting them out against North Carolina or anything like that, but I don't know. I just feel like what started off as a really, really hot season, a really great season, it shows you just how fickle this can be, man.
It can happen fast. And by the way, if any offense wants to get well, I think UNC might be the defense to go against. I don't know, but we'll see. That's 10 days down the road here.
And that's the thing about North Carolina. I don't really know. Brilo has her earned opinion years and years and years of watching North Carolina football to be like, yeah, I told you so on this type of thing.
I mean, I went there like, I understand what UNC football is and is not.
But outside of Florida State, there are no teams in this ACC that give me a reason to go, yup, I can count on you this weekend.
Yeah.
North Carolina is just in this hodgepodge of other teams. I mean, who would have thought at the beginning of the season that Virginia Tech would actually have a path?
Right.
This is the most Virginia Tech thing they've done in years. Remember that one year they lost to James Madison and won the league?
Yes.
This is worse somehow, and they're doing it. It's like, what are you doing?
And a few years ago, they lost to Duke. It was 2019. They lost to Duke on a Friday night, 42-18 or whatever the score was.
It was a beat
They got
down.
beat down up
And
in
Duke
Blacksburg.
barely won again.
Right.
Right.
And then Virginia Tech went on and had a good season. So anyway,
they make no sense.
All right. Well, we need Mike Elko to go viral here.
Well,
I mean, we've
I'll
had
see if we can do that.
Cut
We got
a
a couple
promo.
of availabilities.
We've had Dabo do it. We've had Dave do it. We had Mack Brown doing it this week too. We need come on.
They're
Elko.
playing Wake this week. You know, he and Dave Clawson, they have a history, right? They've coached together. They very, very much want to beat one another Thursday night. So maybe that'll get it going.
Do they like each other personally though? They get along?
They get along.
Oh.
Yeah, they get
Well, now we're not going to get the good stuff.
Well, you never know.
But I think
you never know what competition's going to do.
Gilio and I did have this conversation though at ACC kickoff. Is that we had to graduate from asking about Dave Clawson Wake Forest time because he's like, I did go to Notre Dame. I was at Texas A&M. It's not just Wake Forest. I think this past summer was the last time we'll ever really bring up
Interesting.
that.
Yeah,
sort
he
of
makes
thing.
that clear. Like, don't forget. He's not Dave Clawson Jr. That's clear. He's Mike Elko. So.
Oh, I didn't know if it was more of like those schools are clearly far more important than Wake Forest, which I was like, dang.
No, I think it's more about, to Steve, your point, it's more about, I've made a name for myself.
Yeah.
Correct.
At this point. I'm not some sort of Dave Clawson protege.
No,
Correct.
no.
So I don't blame him
I
for
don't
that.
think anybody, I never thought, I assumed that and thought that.
Well, I mean, at some
actually.
point, the John Shire questions about Coach K are going to eventually get to the John Shire going,
look what I've done.
Look what I'm doing
Yeah.
here. It's not just all
he might need a couple of years for that before that goes over.
make it to the Final Four this year. We
Yeah.
might have that. And I think that's very much in the cards
It
for
is.
Duke this season. Steve Wiseman, News and Observer. All right, man, we'll talk to you later.
Thanks.
I'm not saying Cooper Flagg's the next Zion, but it's going to be interesting to go back to.
There's not a next Zion.
I'm just saying it's going to be interesting to go back to Duke basketball games where the center of the universe
For sure.
is in Durham because they got this player that everybody wants to watch.
They did, but it's still not Zion.
Yeah, it's gonna.
I mean,
that's tough to tell. That was
it's gonna take me a while.
that
before.
was probably like the last truly special season
Yes.
of Triangle basketball because
Yes.
not only did you have Zion and Virginia was running
Carolina
hot,
had a really good team and
Kobe
fun
White
team.
was
Yeah, Cam
incredibly
Johnson,
fun.
who I
Yeah.
love to cover. That guy's great.
Man, that was such a fun season.
It really was.
I hope we have another year like that rather
too.
than what we've been kind of dealing with over the last couple of years. But that's neither here nor there.
You just need to show some appreciation for
You're
Triangle
right.
basketball.
You are correct.
You are spoiled.
Show some appreciation for your home value. Don't diminish it with some sort of guaranteed offer. Contact Hometown Realty. Check them out online at myhtr.com. Really easy website to navigate. More importantly, they got brokers who understand this market. And not just, the old home sales, but new construction as well, all across North Carolina. And if it comes to selling your home, again, don't leave money on the table. Get that maximum value. Show the true appreciation for your home. And if you buy a house, well, you need insurance for that. Who can get you covered, save you some money? Matt Davis over at State Farm. InsureGarner.com, theoginsurance.com, or call them directly at 919-779-8277. They'll save you money. I'm a State Farm customer. I've been a State Farm customer for a really long time. They've always got great customer service, always available, always answering your questions. And again, most importantly, finding ways to save you money. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline from the News and Observer, columnist Luke DeCock. This is you ready for a little old dudes in their mid to late 40s talking about how things used to be? You ready for that?
Yeah. Oh man, let's serve it up.
So you texted me.
Hey man, that's all I do anymore.
You texted me last night and you're like, Dabo beefing down. I thought to myself, oh geez, what did I miss? Because I'm trying to spend less time on Twitter, right? So I open up Twitter and I'm like, there it is. And I see the Tiger calls. And I had two thoughts. So follow me here. The first one was, what year is it? Where did I transport back to? Am I back to my senior year at NC State working the board for the Steve Logan show, where the old ECU coach would battle with ECU fans who were upset about a game, and he would ask questions like, hey, how much money are you giving to the Pirate Club? Oh, you're just like $20? Nah, I don't want to hear from you. These are things that happen. Or is it Roy Williams mid 2000s when he gave us the famous, I'm not a lawyer.
I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I know more about basketball on my little finger than you know in your entire body. Yeah.
So that was probably, I don't know, almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So my first thought was, are they still taking phone calls in Clemson on the coaches show?
Time moves a little more slowly up there in the upstate.
My second thought is that I just gave you some examples, but it even goes deeper than that. Who's the Chicago Cubs coach that was like an urban legend because he went on a rant? Who was that again?
Lee Elia in 1983, one of the seminal moments of my childhood, ripping the fans. I mean, I don't know. I know there's no FCC looking over your shoulder, but there are people listening in the car, so I can't actually quote him. I think Jay Johnstone in his book actually tallied it up in his autobiography. I think there were 38 F-bombs, plus a bunch of other variations on the word and other words you can't use with umpires. Yeah. The gist of it, though, was our team's playing hard. Stop booing the players. It's day baseball. The only people come out here because they don't even work. Playground for the blankety blanks. I mean, just unbelievable speech. But it's 1983. There was one TV station there and one radio reporter there. The TV station's tape got lost long ago. That was my guy, Mark Giangreco at Channel 5. They had it. And then this guy, Les Grobstein, who was like the Tony Rigsby of Chicago, just the radio guy who was everywhere with his microphone, had a tape. And that's the one that kind of got duplicated. That's the one that's on MP3s now. When I was a kid, that got passed around on a cassette tape, and we would all huddle around and listen to it. Next year, he was right. He got fired for that. The next year, the Cubs made the playoffs for the first time in 40 years. And, that was the seminal moment of my childhood, was the 84 Cubs. So, Lee Elia just sort of having enough of the Cubs fans booing his team and letting them have it. That's one of the great coach blasts fans moments of all time. I don't think Dabo's in that league. He just doesn't have it in him.
No, well, the reason why I bring up these examples is that none of this is new. Coaches going after fans is not a new concept, to the point where I'm glad you brought up the cassette tape. It was kind of thought of as funny. We're like, oh man, did you hear what he did here? And you pass it around and you listen to it a bunch of times. Social media makes it really easy to pass around, and then becomes this big referendum on Dabo and whether or not he's losing or whatnot. There's valid points to be made about where Clemson is under Dabo and how he has to evolve. This phone call thing is more of like a throwback to me than anything else. Like, I enjoy the fact that he had a caller go. The caller went for 2.5 minutes.
That was at that point. You can't blame Dabo at that point. I mean, he just wants the mic back.
He's like, hey, okay, I've heard enough. Like, what's your name again? I don't care. And he went on his rant, things like that. So anyway, this is a jumping off point to a larger conversation that maybe coaches do need to log off, because you've got Dabo with this, you got Dave Doeren going after Steve Smith, and he's given more context, and apparently they've texted and videoed and everything else. And even Mack Brown yesterday gave a very interesting press conference where he used bitch and bitching about 6 wins and fans, not appreciating things. These coaches want to feel appreciated, but with the money going up, the selling of championships and how we're this XYZ program, the messaging is getting lost here, and the coaches can't just whine about lack of appreciation when it's part of the sell, man.
I think what all three of those coaches have in common, Dabo, Dave, and Mack, is they're feeling the pressure from fans who, quite frankly, expect more from them.
Yeah.
We go back to shit, be happy we won. Mm-hmm. You know what, Dave? In year 11, people aren't happy you beat UConn.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. They want to beat Clemson, the worst Clemson team in a generation. So you did that, great, but learn how to take a W, man.
The learn how to take a W part, I think you and I disagree on this. I think what Dave's doing here is firing up his team. The idea that they don't quit, for all the faults that Dave has, none of the teams ever really quit. They always at least have a chance, or they look like they still give a damn. And I think Dave's attitude kind of feeds into the team. And I think there's a portion of Dave Doeren, either detractors or supporters, that look at what Dave does and goes, you know what, I like that red meat. It's the old.
Oh no, I'm sure he does. I'm just saying, you beat Clemson. You don't need to bring Steve Smith into this. You don't need to do this Ryan Day light stuff. Like, this is if someone already did this year, they found we don't, we already had an NC State connection. We had Lou Holtz. So
right.
But the thing all three coaches have in question is whether it's because their program is receding in the case of Dabo, or they've fluffed another chance at the big time in the case of Mack, or what you thought was going to be an okay season that turned into a pretty hard to watch season. Although, as you said, NC State keeps fighting. There's no doubt about that. But the rebirth of the offense certainly didn't happen. And there's questions, I think legitimate questions, about the state of the program in year 11, where you have no skill players.
Yeah.
And that just shouldn't happen. So all three of these coaches are dealing with the same thing from their fans, which is from the coach's perspective, like, hey, haven't I built up a reservoir of goodwill with you where you should cut me some slack? And from the fans' perspective, it's no, you've been here for a while. You've proven you can do better than this. We're not happy with this, whether it's, State failing to break through, or Carolina tripping over its own shoelaces, or Clemson receding. And quite frankly, all three of those things are happening. This is not a one season thing. This is Clemson's been building for 2 years. At Carolina, it's been building during 2 Mack tenures. And that State has been building really for 3 or 4 years, when there was that sense that, okay, now State's on the cusp. This is the breakthrough. This is the chance to finally get to Charlotte. And it never happened. I guess it could backdoor happen this year, which would be incredible. That would be the ultimate law of the Wolfpack season. But I think when coaches start lashing out at players, I use the phrase, or fans, I use the phrase beef down. But to me, you think, oh, it's great, they're throwing red meat to the fans. And there is a sense of that. I think when you have a great, like if State were 7-1 and David said that, I think that's a different conversation. To me, this is insecure coaches lashing out at the people who have the temerity to criticize them when that criticism is entirely justified.
Yeah, I'm with you on the fact that the criticism is justified, although there is a difference between these three coaches. Dabo's not going anywhere. Dave Doeren is not going anywhere. Mack Brown is a more interesting case, and it's not lost on me that he keeps bringing up the fact that Drake May only has 2 more home games left. He brought that up in the press conference on Monday. He called his shot at the beginning of the year. I do wonder what is next at UNC. I mean, I can envision a scenario where Mack Brown walks away at the end of the season because they don't have another, I mean, last time I checked, they don't have another generational QB, a guy that this could be playing on Sundays coming down the line the way that Drake May was positioned at UNC. But at the same time, while I can see Mack Brown retiring, I don't know what the plan is at UNC. How do you replace him? What's the obvious choice to come to Chapel Hill? And off the top of my head, I don't know.
I don't know that there is one. I'm not sure that's a huge problem. This is a extremely well-funded program. I mean, for whatever Mack hasn't done at UNC, he's put UNC back on the national map, both in terms of recruiting and attention. I mean, I think it's an attractive job to any good young coach out there who feels an opportunity, sees an opportunity to take over. Joe, I'm going to coin a phrase here: a sleeping giant of college football.
You should put that on a T-shirt.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously the failure of really 2 generational quarterbacks. I mean, there are a lot of skills that would kill for a Sam Howell, let alone a Drake May. And the failure to capitalize on either of those with opportunities. I mean, it wasn't that they were, 4 and 8 both years. I mean, they had opportunities to break through. Is it time for Mack? I mean, that's kind of a Mack decision. Certainly feels like it's trending that way. The frustration that's coming out, the idea that it's probably a multiple year rebuilding cycle starting next year. The fact that he can kind of say he did what he came here to do, despite not actually winning anything. I won a division. I shouldn't say that. Despite only, winning one division and not really doing that national thing. I mean, he can say that he's leaving the program in a much better place than he found it. I think that's a fair thing to say, regardless of the criticisms of Mack and his team's failure to win the little game or beat Florida State. The failure to sort of, the nightmare of living the same season over and over again in perpetuity. Despite all of that, I don't think there's any doubt that Carolina football is in a stronger place. It's a better brand than it was when he took over. And look, what matters in college football in 23? Doesn't matter whether you win. Doesn't matter whether you recruit. Doesn't matter whether your fans are happy. It matters whether you're a brand. That's the future. So, Colorado's a brand now. Great. That's awesome. I'm happy. It's exciting. But in the end, Matt can say he's done that for Carolina. I don't think Carolina football is a quote unquote brand in the final Larry Fedora years the way it is now.
We'll wrap things up with the Carolina Hurricanes as the month of October comes to a close. Canes have barely been home in the month of October as they continue this second part of their October road trip. But we're just going to go into the life advice of Father Finn. If it was easy, it wouldn't be hard. And if it was hard, it wouldn't be easy. I mean, I understood what Auntie Ronta was trying to say the other day after they beat the San Jose. Or was it after the Kraken game or the Sharks game?
Sharks game. It was the
Sharks
game.
Game. Yeah. So they won last night. They beat the Flyers. They're in New York on Thursday. And I guess to me, the overall takeaway for the Carolina Hurricanes so far is that Tom Dundon was absolutely right to double down on Teuvo Teravainen, who has been spectacular in the month of October. It's nice to get Andrei Svechnikov back. It's the one thing that the Canes have been known for under Rod Brind'Amour the last few years. Their defense and goaltending has been suspect in October, but it's October. You can work these things out, and they look like they're back on track, playing what the Canes are typically playing. But I'm not sweating the defense and the goaltending yet.
No, I wouldn't sweat the details now either. The phrase I've used a lot with people is motivational dead zone, especially on that State Fair road trip. It's really hard to get up for these games when you're going to make the playoffs. I think what you saw last night against the Flyers was a team that kind of said, All right, let's go beat these guys, and then we gotta, have a nice dinner. Like kind of roused itself in the third.
Yeah.
Tavo, they didn't have a lot of options. There wasn't a lot of demand for Tavo Teravainen last year. It was basically a prove it or lose it situation this year. I talked to him at length after the game against San Jose. Confidence matters. And I honestly think this is one of those weird unintended consequences things. His thumb from the slash in the playoffs last year is still not quite right. He still can't fully bend it. I think that may have encouraged him to sort of, try fewer passes and shoot more. And look at the results. Like that shot last night was a laser. The third goal against the Sharks was a laser.
Oh, I couldn't watch it last night, Luke, because I kept getting a load failure.
Yeah, I was actually trying to watch it on the couch while I watched the Lions game, and I had to go in the bedroom and.
Tom Dundon's got money. Can we just get it? Can you just do an app already?
Hey, be careful what you wish for on that. That's all I'll say on that.
I mean, I know it'll cost
experiences some people have had with teams going solo on their rights is not all trip through the daisies. But the biggest problem the Hurricanes had, the defense was a struggle in the first sort of whatever number of games. That's natural. Like, look how long it took Dougie Hamilton to adjust to the system. Look how long it took Brent Burns to adjust to the system. Orlov, D'Angelo coming back, Jalen Chatfield readjusting to a new role, although I feel like he should have earned the 6th spot. It's a different conversation. That's all sort of something we see every year with this team. And I think you saw last night Orlov getting better. I mean, I think it's going to get better over the next 2 months. In the end, it's fine. And the part of the Ranta quote when he was channeling Artur Zerbe and his wacky Latvian metaphors was he started out saying, you go through rough patch.
You do, right.
So it's hard. If it was easy, it wouldn't be hard. So it's hard. So it's not easy. But you know what? It's good for this team to go through a little adversity. They've been on easy street the last couple of years. And then when adversity has come in the playoffs, they haven't handled it that well. So you know what? Fight through something. Show a little something. Do it now. Do it in December. Do it in January. Have a little reserve of a little fight back when it matters. So when you get into a 1-goal game in the playoffs, you can fight through it and get that goal. So Michael Bunting scoring last night, that's another good sign because that's the guy they need to give them the goals they were missing. Not that Tavo would help too. But that's those are the missing pieces.
Bunting's one of those complimentary pieces that you brought here for the sandpaper and to get some scoring out of it too. But yes, the bigger takeaway again is Teravainen looking like himself again. But again, it's early. There are going to be some ups and downs, and guys are going to go through rough patches. So,
yeah, Luke, if it was hard, it wouldn't be easy.
Thank you, Ati Ranta. Luke DeCock, columnist, News and Observer. All right, man, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
You got it, kid.
All right, Lauren, let's get out of here with some Hey Joe questions, shall we?
Sure.
All right. You can hit us up on social media, Threads, Twitter, et cetera. But I actually wanted to get into our YouTube comments. I don't want YouTube Premium. Thank you very much. So I was interested in some of the comments that we ended up getting from YouTube, like from Robert. I can only dream of what state would be with KC and the addition of Drake May. Don't think you guys have given enough time to State's defense and Peyton Wilson. Oh, come on. We lauded Peyton Wilson.
Peyton Wilson is having an incredible season. And he was already really good, but this season is incredible.
From Robert, everyone's talking about Steve Smith stuff and must have missed the first line about how many fans have lost faith in the team.
Yes.
Yeah, that was kind of a buried lead there, but I think as some people have actually pointed out in terms of how State fans have been, they keep showing up. I'm actually trying to see if I can find. I'm trying to see. Here it is from Spring Pro. Carter Finley was basically full for a 4-3 team. Just shut up, Doeren. Nobody else in the ACC would have done that on a Saturday. Just look down the road at what a 6-0 team could muster.
I mean, I think some of that. I mean, well, we can't talk about that without context. If we're going to talk about the other without if you want context to add to what Doeren said, whatever. It's fine.
But the larger point is that State fans keep showing up.
They do keep showing up. Yes. You're right. But I don't think what Dave was talking about was that. I think what he was talking about was kind of the negative talk about who the personnel is on offense and stuff like that. And how the offense just sucks. And maybe even some of the negativity that was thrown Brennan Armstrong's way and stuff like that. I think that's more the stuff he's talking about. And look, he is already a sensitive guy, but he cares about his players. I mean, I think that's where a lot of this comes from with head coaches. It does come from ego somewhat, but a lot of them like genuinely love their guys very much. And they don't like to see them. If anybody's going to be critical of them, it's got to be the coach. Like, not y'all. Leave them alone kind of thing. I think that was a little bit of his defensiveness, unless like you're not showing up. But I could be wrong. You know how that relationship has always been.
From Jay Clemens on YouTube, UNC football after Saturday is what NC State football became midway through the 2006 season under Chuck Amato. It's a realization that the national program, Texas, Florida State, from which these coaches had their national success, is not the same as the regional programs they came here to coach. Mack, like Chuck, was brought here to lead these schools into a renovation-based capital project. Wow, very fancy. Those coaches eventually did exactly what they were brought here to do. And ironically, once those capital projects were completed, fans stopped believing in that this is how you become elite coach speak. Those coaches continued to sell. It was bound to happen with Carolina, and I knew it would turn by year 4 or 5 with the Mack 2.0 experiment. I did ask the question yesterday, is this and you and I have texted about this, is this as far as Mack Brown can take North Carolina? In the grand scheme of things, you've got this Hall of Fame coach and Mack Brown, who's won a national championship. Is he the ceiling for UNC football?
That's hard to say because, like, and I don't say this do you mean like what he represents in general, or like because he's not long for that job, no matter what? No,
he's not long for that job. I don't know who the next guy is going to be.
And that's to me, I think, the big question, right?
The point is, if you have Mack Brown, who has an actual, like a legit football Hall of Fame resume,
right?
If this, as far as he can take it, is this just what UNC football is?
That's a complicated question.
It is a complicated question.
It really is.
Which we probably don't have enough time for.
No, I mean, we probably don't. But I will say this. I think, like, the thing is that I think hurts the fans is that they get close.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems as if, all we have is this small obstacle to overcome.
And it's that easy.
Right.
And it's not.
I think it would be easier almost if they were doing even the more Chuck Amato-y thing of upsetting the ranked teams. And that's not happening really either. So you add those two things together, you're losing games you shouldn't, and you're not upsetting anybody. That's going to lead to fan impatience, because it's like, okay, we get that you can't beat all these ranked teams and we understand that. And for the most part, they've acquitted themselves well in games against ranked teams. Like, it's not like they've gotten humiliated in most of them, but like these are the games you can't lose. Yeah. Like, that's the problem. I think that's a big issue. It's like it's right there for you. It's on a tee. They just want you to take care of what you can take care of and what's reasonable to ask. And I think to lose games like that twice in a row, like, it's
tough to watch.
So like, if you ask me, is that the best Carolina can do? Like, no, I don't necessarily think so. But like, if you're going to talk about the record, yeah, maybe. Like, maybe.
From Carl,
I would hear that.
You guys dogging on Dave or any coach in the Triangle rather than celebrate Triangle athletics is unbecoming. I live 1,000 miles away and follow my home school.
Unbecoming. I feel like I'm at Cotillion.
It is shadowed by your sour reviews.
Oh, cry about it.
There just feels like a lot of nasty coverage coming from the Triangle. It makes my interest in college athletics less fun.
I'm glad we have. Wow,
Carl,
we're very powerful for you, Carl.
Look, man, Carl. Like, I don't know what to tell you, dude. All I know is that I don't know what's positive after losing the way that Carolina has lost the last couple of weeks.
And I'm sorry. What positive do you want me to draw from that?
And then as far as Dave Doeren is concerned, I do think this kind of comes down to a classic case of you hear what you want to hear. And Joe and I had a pretty robust conversation about Dave Doeren. And I said straight up, I understood where Dave Doeren was coming from in terms of wanting his flowers, in terms of how NC State's budget is, what he's working with, what he's been able to do in 11 years, how the floor has improved over time, and things like that.
And can you pick various things about it, like who they've beaten, stuff like that? Yes, but
our job, NC State doesn't pay me. North Carolina doesn't pay me. They don't pay you. They don't pay Joe. Our jobs are to be basically to give as much context and understanding as to why things are the way they are in the Triangle. And that's what you do after you've been here for a long time. So it's not dogging Dave. It's adding context to what he claims is going on at NC State. It's adding context to why he feels the way that he feels. If you feel that's negative, I don't know what to tell you other than there are plenty of outlets available to you that will give you nothing but sunshine all the time.
I just think that's very much a Dabo energy of you're the problem.
Yeah. No, I don't think we're the problem.
It's me. Hi.
I don't think we're the problem. Anyway, that's going to
No.
wrap it up for today's show. We'll see you Thursday for a little ACC Week 10 premature evaluations.
I'm excited.